Good morning.
Morning.
Morning, Phil. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Nice to have everybody here with us today. Hi, how are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Where are you?
Dubai.
Oh, I'm
Wonderful
coming.
Dubai.
We're going to be there eventually. We're excited to
Yeah.
be there. I actually just spoke to 2 retired U.S. Army generals who live in Abu Dhabi, and they keep telling me, you've got to come and you've got to go to Dubai.
You should, it should. It's a lovely place. You
Yeah.
should.
It is a beautiful place. Yeah.
Yes, undoubtedly.
Dubai, Sharjah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all neighboring Emirates.
Yep. Yep. Been to schools in both of those places and been out to the technology conference. It's out in the desert in
Absolutely.
city of Aid. Is it Aid in the desert where the technology college is?
Sorry, can't hear you. Your voice is cracking up.
Oh, there's a technology college in the desert in an oasis city called Aid, I think.
Okay.
And
Well, there are so many colleges here and everything is a desert.
yes, that's true. That's true. Everything except Dubai.
Which desert are you talking about? I don't know.
Yeah, I think you mean Ruiz.
That
Yeah,
might be.
away.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Roué? Okay. Well, we're going to
This
wait.
was
Sorry, Bruce. I was just going to say, we'll wait one more minute for participants. We have a few more that are coming in, but it's nice to see everybody this morning. And what time is it in Dubai?
4:30 in the evening. And I'm still sitting in office because I wanted to attend this.
Oh, wonderful.
We
Well,
appreciate that.
we're really pleased you could be with us
I'm sure it'll be worthwhile.
today. All right, we're going to get started here in just a second. Going to be doing a screen share to show you some slides. We're going to talk through it. And first of all, welcome everybody to this webinar, which is all about social emotional learning for students and their schools. My name is Dov Shapiro, and with us today is Dr. Bruce Hayes. Hi, Bruce. Nice to see you this morning.
Morning, everybody.
And we're going to just roll right into it as we share the screen. So the discussion today is all about the importance of social emotional learning in schools and the school-wide impact that SEL can have. The effects of remote learning have been impacted by students all across the world. And at one point during the pandemic, over 1.2 billion students were out of classrooms. And something really needs to be done to better provide resources for schools and unique solutions for each individual learner type. Stakeholders, like students, parents, they're disengaged, they're isolated in many ways, and at times even feeling confrontational. So the need for actionable assessment data in the K-12 sector at this time is vital. So over the next 25 minutes, we're going to identify some ways that schools can optimize resources, save time and energy, achieve their strategic plan goals, unite stakeholders behind the leadership agenda, and most importantly, impact student well-being through SEL. Dr. Bruce Hayes, welcome. It's so wonderful to have you here with us. And Bruce, by the way, is an educator, former superintendent, and an educational consultant. He'll be guiding us in reviewing effective change management and student well-being interventions.
Thanks, Dov. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you this morning. Dov and I and Phil Esprant, the other principal in Vital Insight, and through our conversations discovered that we are approaching the same issues of learner empowerment from 2 different directions. And so the purpose of this webinar this morning is to explore how we can take both the macro and the micro approach to addressing those issues of isolation and confrontation and the disassembly of the school community, as it were. Our two technologies complement and support each other in promoting healthy learning, which is what we're all after. ConnectU does that at the immediate individual student level, and Vital Insight does that at the district and school best practice level.
Bruce, at this point in time, mental health in high schools is declining. The WHO reports that mental health conditions account for 16% of disease and injury in students 10 to 19 years old. And according to psychologist Peter Gray, children today are actually more depressed than they were during the Great Depression, and even more anxious than they were at the height of the Cold War. And the pandemic has exacerbated the mental health crisis for young students across the world. So mental health care professionals say student mental wellness should be top priority now and as kids return to class after the summer. So educational institutions play an important role in their students' mental health, and students need our support to help them decrease anxiety and increase resiliency. So how can teachers impact student resilience? By making the connections and helping them maintain healthy daily routines, taking time for themselves, create achievable goals, and nurturing a positive view, and keep things in perspective with a growth mindset and hopeful outlook. So, sorry, just gonna switch slides. Bruce, sorry about that. Bruce, I couldn't click the button. Can you tell us how recent events have impacted the way you support SEL in schools?
Certainly, my pleasure. Schools are planning for an unprecedented future. We're working with schools all across the country and internationally to look at really, and these are words I want you to leave this webinar with this morning. We need to be agile, we need to be resilient, we need to be resourceful, and we need to be focused on the needs of learners. We discovered some time ago that the shared responsibilities among all stakeholders in a system like schools account for 95% of the factors that impact student learning. We spend a lot of time looking at the performance of individual students, individual teachers, individual administrators, individual employees, and that's all very good. And there are good research-based processes to do that, but that ignores that 95% of the factors that are our shared responsibilities. They are in the areas of interrelationships, programs, protocols, and data. And these are the true root causes of performance. Relating those shared responsibilities to research-based best practice provides us with the critical information about where lie our strengths, where lie our vulnerabilities, and what we can do to improve ourselves. So Vital Insight was developed when we studied the various problem-solving protocols across many different sciences and professions. And we based Vital Insight on the protocols of clinical medicine. Clinical medicine over the last 200 years has had the greatest success at moving past symptoms and not just treating the results of performance, but rather performance itself and the root cause. So it's designed to get into the performance, identify the root causes, and prescribe proven research-based strategies. So what we do, our technology invites as many as 12 different stakeholder groups in unlimited numbers of your choice to share their knowledge, their experience, and their aspirations related inherently to over 8,000 best practices. And one of the glories is it takes an individual respondent only 20 minutes to complete their responsibilities. And what we found is that this unites stakeholders behind a leadership agenda for improvement. It eliminates about 8 months of typical argument about priorities and resources that usually occurs at the beginning of the strategic planning process and propels those stakeholders united together forward into an improved future. Our studies have demonstrated that in schools and districts that have used Vital Insight, we've seen increased student achievement, increased parent trust, improved teacher innovation, improved teacher use of data to plan instruction, and savings of time and money. So, at this particular time when everybody's got a plan for a new future, it's very important that we try to streamline that process and unite the stakeholders behind us. So these protocols, programs, interrelationships, and metrics represent that white space here. You'll notice there's something that looks like an org chart, except there are no lines of authority. We're looking at that space which we all share between the blue boxes. Through diagnosing best practice strengths and vulnerabilities and then prescribing the proven best practices. And I will tell you that Vital Insight will prescribe approximately 25 research-based best practices for every identified practice vulnerability in a district or school. The district and school become more agile, become more resilient, and they're able to support the demands of social and emotional learning.
That kind of actionable data is actually quite impressive. What sectors do you actually focus on?
When we did the original research, we divided the best practices that were available to organizations in education into 18 individual, what we call interactive performance systems. 18 is too many to deal with at one time, and so we reorganized them into these 5: data and metrics, stakeholder engagement, adult and student learning, safety and security, and shared leadership. And these represent the 8,000 best practices. Those 18 interactive performance systems are in areas like teamwork and problem solving, curriculum, customer focus, use of resources, safety and security, shared leadership, technology, et cetera, all things that we would easily identify with.
What surprised you the most after you launched Vital Insights, Bruce?
Well, I think we believe strongly, and our confidence was proven that we were able to unite stakeholders behind an improved agenda for change. What surprised us was that how firmly different stakeholders who were previously entrenched in arguing for their own resources and arguing for their own priorities and believing that it was a zero-sum game and that anything that someone else got was something less that I would get. We're able to do away with that and unite them. The various stakeholder groups came together around this data and owned it. They would look at this, and I can't tell you the numbers of times we've had meetings to look at this data with people and they go, you know what? That's us. I couldn't have explained it that way. I didn't see it that way, but I understand that that's us. So as soon as everybody responds to and usually we leave we leave the portal open for a week for people to respond, because a week gives them both the convenient time to do it, but it creates some urgency so that, people will. An online set of data dashboard reports is produced, and we do this both in tables and in narrative and in graphs. And we disaggregate the data by school, by stakeholder group, and by each of the 18 systems. And we look at the 18 systems through all dimensions, including the order in which they need to be done, because some are more fundamental than others, for example, or how the interrelationship of the 18 affects the implementation of improvement agendas. The other thing that we look at that no one else has looked at before that we're very proud of and has been incredibly useful is that inherent in the algorithms underlying the analysis of the responses of stakeholders is a measurement of both the commitment and the capacity of those stakeholders for change. Too often we assume that when we find a good path forward, everybody's willing, able, and ready to take that path, when in fact, we often mistake capacity, which is our ability to get it done, with our commitment, which is our willingness to get it done. I think you'll find in your stakeholder groups, excuse me, you have people who are able, but aren't interested. You have people who are interested, but not able. You have people that are neither and people that are both. So we measure those things so that you can identify by school and by stakeholder group where greater commitment or capacity is needed. There are specific strategies that can be implemented to make sure that people are ready to move forward and make these improvements in support of individual learners and students.
While Vital Insights diagnoses practice strengths and vulnerabilities of schools and districts, ConnectU addresses the individual student. I've been working with youth and adolescents for over 30 years as a teacher and experiential educator, and I've witnessed the decline of their life learning skills and mental health even prior to COVID. We launched the ConnectU program 2 years ago because we wanted to create opportunities for educators to learn about each of their students and strengths and areas for growth, but on an individual level. In our research, we asked educators what they needed to support their students' mental health, and their response was often to provide students with evidence-based tools to become more autonomous, learn to self-regulate, and adopt a growth mindset, and become more resilient. So research shows that goal setting can affect self-efficacy and motivation, and that building self-efficacy can lead to resilience and improve well-being. So we actually took our 14 constructs from our assessment and divided it into 4 key growth areas. Because now more than ever, it's very challenging to understand each student's personality, strengths, and areas for growth. So the ConnectU program includes this assessment and a SMART goals curriculum, all done through a really intuitive web app. The customizable assessment helps principals and teachers create individual student profiles by assessing up to 14 different constructs like resilience, confidence, student agency, creativity. And we then, after they're divided into these categories, we can then look at these assessment results and understand our students at a really deep level. The dashboard helps to highlight students who may be at risk for mental health problems and who may benefit from more teacher-based support and more intentional learning environments. Our intervention model is a powerful metacognitive process, and it's designed to accelerate SEL by helping to develop student agency and increase confidence and resilience. We do this through evidence-based tools which embody the CASEL 5 core competencies of the SEL framework, which are self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship skills. We designed the app and the curriculum using the SMART goal setting method, which is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. So students create their goals and action items in the web app, and we use 2D animated videos, which are age and developmentally appropriate. And it makes the experience really fun for students to learn about goal setting. They learn how to create academic, personal, and collaborative goals and action items through the app, which can be used on a laptop, tablet, or phone. And through the whole journey, they learn to communicate and work together and achieve their goals. Students are really accountable for their goals in this particular platform because teachers can quickly monitor engagement. If you look at the dashboard on the right, it just takes a few seconds to look through and see which students have created goals, achieved them, or if any, or abandoned, or whether they've missed their deadlines. So the program really creates a level of accountability between the teacher and the student. However, we added another layer of accountability by providing a system called the Goal Buddy. So through the app, the student chooses an accountability partner who must be 21 or older, could be a mentor, coach, family member, and the parents have to approve each Goal Buddy through the app itself. So having that accountability partner really supports the student so that if they miss their deadline or if they're having trouble reaching a goal or an action item, they reflect back on what they did and how they can make change in order to achieve whatever they're trying to achieve, whether it's a goal or an action item, and in a timely manner. And they definitely celebrate every success with their student because you've got to celebrate achievement. So Bruce, how does Vital Insights help schools with their SEL goals?
Well, the success of every individual student is dependent not only on the quality of program and teacher interaction, but on the agility and the resiliency of the larger school and district culture, program, and support network to understand and meet the needs of every student. So while ConnectU is fundamental to understanding the social and emotional learning needs of the individual student, Vital Insight makes sure that resilience and agility is built into the larger school and district culture. Just as ConnectU serves as, using our model of clinical medicine, the physician that treats the individual needs of students through diagnostic and prescriptive protocols, Vital Insight acts as the larger healthcare community that builds the resilience and agility into the broader community health system that assures that the diagnosis and prescriptions, or the program for supporting social and emotional learning needs of students, are supported and effective in the total life of the individual. So I think that from our 5,000-foot view and if you're on the ground view, we're both working to support the social and emotional learning needs of students.
What type of quantifiable results does Vital Insights actually offer for schools?
Well, we provided the data dashboards, but probably more so that people can understand what they believe, what their aspirations, their knowledge, and their experience are. But more importantly, we give them the research base of what they're doing and the research base of what they can do and the choices they can make to move forward and get better. Both ConnectU and Vital Insight technologies provide the actionable data. Diagnosing the root causes, getting past the symptoms or just the expressions of the problem is incredibly important. So, together, I think that we can improve goal setting. We can engage more stakeholders. We can reduce the isolation. We can reduce the level of confrontation among the various stakeholder groups, and we can return the focus to the needs of the individual learners.
Thanks, Bruce. I'm going to just stop the share here. With valid, actionable data like this, it's an amazing opportunity for us to create a very healthy community for our students and our faculty, and understanding the opportunities that lie ahead of the next school year, which is going to be one unlike any other that we've ever experienced. So this is a great time for us to look at different types of strategies that can ensure student will improve well-being, that they'll be engaged, and most importantly, that they'll improve their overall mental health and their ability to focus on school and their social life. At this point, I'd like to know if there's any questions from the participants from our audience. We'll open up a little short Q&A here.
I have a small question. It's basically, you said that you have different curriculum models for, this is for what age group basically you're focusing on?
Sorry, you're talking to ConnectU, Dove?
Yeah, go ahead, take it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I couldn't. Yeah, so our age group is actually 11 through 18 years old. It is for the secondary school systems. However, we work with the older ages in at the elementary level. So sixth grade, or depending on the geographic territory, grade 5 is a great place to start.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I just add in that among the stakeholder groups that we engage, we do engage students as a stakeholder group. And we use the same thing. We find that at grade 6, kids can think critically enough about their own experience and our own interactions with the systems and with adults and things like that to be able to contribute meaningfully to the data.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, have there been any trends that you've been able to see in the data so far in the pilots and/or in actual experiences that would give us an idea of what are the students thinking about out there, and also what are school districts taking a look at these days?
So from our end, what we're seeing is what we fear, which is there's a very high level of students that are scoring low in their construct scores, in particular in the mental health category. Resilience, confidence, social esteem, the levels are lower than they were a year ago. And it's, as I mentioned, it is what we feared. We anticipate, unfortunately, based on our conversations with mental health care professionals, that may continue to decline as the post-traumatic stress of what they've undergone in the last year may be a factor in further decreasing their overall mental health. So that's unfortunately what we've been seeing in our data.
We recently published a white paper based upon an analysis of data from districts and schools across the United States, pre-pandemic and during the pandemic. And what we were able to discover was that while school district leaders and communities understood that a lot of planning had to be done in order to respond appropriately to the needs of students during the pandemic and emerging from the pandemic, they were relying upon processes and systems in which they didn't have a great deal of faith. They were pointing out problems in some of their teamwork and problem solving and planning processes, for example, but that's the same well they went back to. And so it was kind of a scary process that we're looking to plan and improve future using those techniques and skills that we readily admit we're not particularly good at. And so that was a real concern of ours. And that paper was published by the American Association of School Administrators. And it really points up the fact that we need to take a very careful look at where our strengths and our true vulnerabilities lie, leverage our strengths in the planning process. What is it we do well, and how can we continue to do that well so that we bring the support to the learners in the community? And then secondly, where are our vulnerabilities, and what do we do to improve those vulnerabilities so that they don't become inherent weaknesses in our attempts to educate students?
I'd like to ask you,
I have,
sorry, go
I
ahead.
have another question. Yeah, you mentioned about the best practices in which you have relative strengths across 5 sectors and 18 IPS, right? In
Yes.
that, you have mentioned those the safety and security. You have UAE there, which is going there. Now, I'm a little confused with that because
Yeah,
you
that's
have
good.
got the different countries in different places, so it doesn't give you a complete data as such. You know, it doesn't give you a reflection of how all the countries are placed in all the different sectors.
Yes, that's unfortunate. We have to look at that. UAE means it's the acceptance of expectations by all the stakeholder groups. And it's an acronym, and we probably need to rename that so it's not confused with the work that we do
Oh, all
at
right.
Emirates. But in safety and security, what we look at is our place is safe and secure. Do students feel safe? Is the architecture safe? Is the process and the procedures? Do we have the right relationships with people? Do we have the protocols in place so that we can respond appropriately to emergencies, or can we prevent them? What is the technology safe, and how do we handle it? So there's a lot of things within the safety and security piece. The UAE is the universal acceptance of those expectations. Those expectations are only as powerful as our willingness to live by them. And one of the things that we've been able to discover in some places is we've got all the protocols, we've got all the rules, but you know what? We ignore them. So how good are those rules if we don't live by them? So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a point I wanted to make. UAE is not United Arab Emirates. It's
Yeah, because we are part of a big group of education over here. Like my school is part of GEMS education, and we take safeguarding and safety of students in a very, very big way.
Yes.
In fact, I'm approaching a safeguarding evaluation happening next week. So I was very concerned about this. I said, like, what exactly does this mean, and how we can support that more?
No, it's not a reflection of the work of the GEM schools or any of the schools there. As I said, we worked with schools in Dubai and Sharjah, and what we found is that they're very concerned with safety and security, and in many ways are some of the safest and most secure schools in the world.
Yeah. Right.
And you're to be commended for that. So.
Right. Thank you, Bruce.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks for the question.
Bruce, how long does it typically take? You said I think you mentioned it takes about 20 minutes for them to complete your questionnaire, but how much time does it actually take to implement the program across the board for the school?
Yeah, that's a good question. The whole process takes a week. The dashboards are created immediately. The issue is then, how does the leadership unite with the stakeholders to look at those prescriptions that are presented and determine, how they can implement them? As I said, our experience has shown us that that week replaces the first 8 months of strategic planning, when people typically get together and argue about resources and argue about problems and put poster notes around the room and all that kind of stuff. All that gets swept aside, and you have a much better representation of the entire community in this data. Then the question is, how do we share that data back with the public, which takes a couple of meetings, and then how do we move forward? So that part of the process can take as much or as little time as people want. But what we found is that a plan that has taken many schools up to a year to develop and plan for the implementation and actually begin to implement happens in 3 to 4 months.
Okay. Thanks, Bruce. A lot of great information there. Does anyone else have any other questions? We will be sending out a recording of this in case you came in late or if you missed part of it. And in addition to that, we'll be also providing you with some really valuable resources. One from ConnectU will be a short video about SMART goals. So very simple, 2D animated, but highly educational and very age appropriate. So Bruce, I think you mentioned that you would have a couple of things to share with the group as well. So we'll be sending that out to you later today. But before we close out, are there any other last minute questions for either Vital Insights or ConnectU?
Another one from me.
Yes.
Yeah, is it possible for us to have a look at a basic skeleton program of the model kind of framework that you have developed for SEL across the school?
I think that's for you, Dov.
I think I'm unclear on the question, but can you?
All right, I'll repeat it. As in, is it possible to have a look at the skeleton framework that you have developed for the school, besides the dashboard and everything that we've seen that is going to be useful in the app? The
Yeah,
curriculum that you have developed, yeah.
We can both, yeah. I speaking, I think for both of us, certainly for Vital Insight, we can walk you through an entire dashboard of real data from the school. We'll anonymize the school, obviously.
Yeah.
Each of the schools and districts with which we work, they own that data, but they give us permission to anonymize it so that we can do further research and we can share it by way of example with other people, and we can, correlate that data with other schools, that kind of thing. So we can walk you through an entire dashboard, including, the specific diagnoses and prescriptions and things like that get generated. So yes, we can do that.
Yeah, and sorry to interject, we do the same at ConnectU. Happy to share the information with you and give you a snapshot view of, through a demo, how it all comes together and how this actionable data is shown, reported, and used for you and other stakeholders.
Dov, can you put up the slide on the contact information? Because I
Yeah.
think that would be helpful for people. There we go.
So as I mentioned before, we're going to actually send you a follow-up email with all of this contact information in case you don't get a screenshot in. And just as a reminder, we know 2021 to 2022 promises to be a school year like none other before. So I really believe that, through technology and innovation, we can really make sure that we optimize the learning for every student. If you'd like to learn more, or if you'd like to request a demo, feel free to reach out anytime. We'll send out some information later on today. And thanks again to everybody for participating. It was lovely to be here with you, Dr. Hayes. Thank you so much for your time and your insight on Vital Insight. Have yourself a
Thank you,
wonderful-
and best wishes to everybody. Have a
Yeah,
glorious
and
day.
and to all of our American friends, I hope you had a great Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you.
Nice to
Bye.
meet you all.
Take
Have a
care.
great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Bruce.
Bye, Dov.